Is it possible that a terrifying paranormal encounter in Utah was not a one-off event? Instead, it was a clue as to what may truly happen after we die. And then we take a look at the story of a young man who believes a satanic presence has invaded his house. Is it possible that he is currently facing demonic oppression? And if that is true, how did it find its way in? Today on Dead Rabbit Radio. Hey everyone, welcome back to another episode of Dead Rabbit Radio. I'm your host, Jason Carpenter. I'm having a great day. Hope you guys are having a great day too. I hope you guys are having tons of fun doing whatever you're doing. We got a lot of stuff to cover today, so first off, running into Dead Rabbit Radio Command. Everyone get on your feet and give it up for one of our live stream supporters, Leo. Woohoo, yeah! Yeah, you're just like, oh, this guy again. Woohoo, yeah! You're like, yeah, what is he, a lion running around? I think Leo has made the most consecutive appearances on Dead Rabbit Radio. I'm pretty sure he got 2 shout-outs before the end of the season, and he got one yesterday, but hey man, I'm all about giving the shout-outs, and Leo did make a very generous donation during the Dead Rabbit Radio, I think it was the 7th anniversary live stream special, so I'm glad you're back, Leo. You're going to be our captain, our pilot this episode. If you guys can't support the show financially through the Patreon, or through the merch store, or through live streams, that's totally fine, it really is. Just help spread the word about Dead Rabbit Radio, that helps out so much. Tell your friends, tell your family, tell everyone you know. Dead Rabbit Radio is your favorite paranormal show. That is how you can help the show grow. Okay, Leo, let's go ahead and get this party started. I'm going to toss you probably have your own set of keys at this point. You've made copies of everything. You've moved into Dead Rabbit Radio Command. Let's go ahead and toss you the keys to the Dead Rabbit Dirigible. Everyone climb on board this big, beautiful blimp as Leo flies us out of Dead Rabbit Radio Command all the way out to Utah. Dead Rabbit Dirigible soaring high in the sky. Every time I do that sound effect now, I don't remember this happening in the past, but when I hit that, it's like my eyeballs want to pop out of my head. Maybe I need to get my blood pressure checked. I don't think that's normal, but I also don't normally make that noise. But I just feel so much pressure behind my eyes, so I'm probably going to have to retire that vehicle. Out of all of them, that'll be the one that appears the least. I just immediately feel my eyeballs want to pop out of my head. You're like, Jason, yeah, that actually is a sign of some sort of pressure buildup. Whether it's blood pressure or sinus pressure, get your eyes checked out. We're flying all the way out to Utah. And we're going to give a tip of the hat to Cassius Von Fruity Pants, longtime listener of Dead Rabbit Radio. They sent over this addendum to a story we covered a while back. So Cassius, thanks for sending this over, and let's go ahead and get this kind of set up here. So let's travel back to episode 1412 of Dead Rabbit Radio. We did a story back then that took place in Utah about a backpacker who was traveling around and he wanted to make this arduous journey, so he kind of mapped out where he was going, and he ended up at this isolated lake. And it was late one night, he had made camp, and the campfire's roaring. He's sitting there probably eating marshmallows or hot dogs, traditional camp food. He's at the same time, that sounds so disgusting. He's like, oh, yeah. That's a Dead Rabbit Radio challenge. Can you eat a hot dog and a marshmallow at the same time and survive, right? I don't think you'll have a blood pressure problem. I think you'll have a swallowing problem. But anyways, he's eating hot dogs and marshmallows at the same time when all of a sudden he sees just outside of the ring of fire, like the ring of light, fire's going and it illuminates only so far, and then there's that spot. Outside of that ring of light, he sees an old woman walking by, which would be alarming enough. You're in the middle of nowhere. You see an old person. If you saw a young person, he'd be like, oh, it's a fellow hiker. That would be scary as well, because he's in the middle of nowhere. He chose this spot so there's no one around. If you saw a 20-year-old strapping young lad walk by, that'd be alarming enough, but you wouldn't be scary. But to see an old woman in the middle of nowhere, that's pretty alarming. But it wasn't just some old lady walking by. She was walking, well, what was happening, but she was walking on her hands. She was walking on her hands just outside of the light so he could make out the shape of her and make out the movements that she was making, but couldn't tell a lot of details, and he basically got super scared. Very, very terrifying encounter. Honestly, I don't remember the rest of the story. I don't remember if he packed up that night. I think he just stayed up all night and then left in the morning. And I do remember the part where he just basically hiked out. He didn't camp again. He hiked out. He got to a road and hitched a ride, and the guy who was driving the truck said, yeah, locals don't like to go out there. It's a pretty weird place. Very interesting story. There's a lot of places around the world that I'm sure are full of these types of paranormal events. The vastness just of America alone, the vast wilderness, I'm sure that there's constantly things going on out there. There's just not usually people there to see it. You wonder, like, if there's just a squirrel there, does the woman walk on her hands and the squirrel's like, He takes off, grabs a couple nuts, and bounces. It'd be scary, too, the idea of, like, a little ghost girl who drowned at this pond 50 years ago, and every so often a hiker or a hunter sees the little outline of a girl sitting there sobbing. But before they can render aid or see what's going on, she simply fades away. Does that also happen when there's no humans around? Like there's just a few deer walking by, getting some extra grass in their belly before they go to sleep, and they hear a and deer looks over. This little outline of a girl. Do those things happen even if there aren't humans around? I mean, obviously, we wouldn't know. And there's possibility that it does happen if it is a regular event. There's also the possibility that it only happens when humans are around because they're reacting to our energy. They're reacting to our psychic soul energy in the area. I would argue that if it happens when humans are around, it probably does happen when humans aren't around. When no one's at home, the ghost probably is still there. You know, actually, it is that, because we've covered enough, I shouldn't say for a fact, we don't know, but we've covered enough stories, and I've read even more stories than I've covered, of people leaving their house and coming home, and a ghost had interacted with their belongings. Furniture has been moved around, things had been broken, even though there was no person around at that time. So ghosts can definitely interact with our world, even if there's not a human there to perceive them. And there is something creepy or maybe even tragic. A ghost reappearing in front of a person, you know, it's terrifying. In the case of a crying girl, you know, she's still trying to find solace long after she died. But to imagine that girl appearing in the empty forest in the middle of the night, that is even more tragic. That soul is truly lost. It is alone. And yet it still sits there in the darkness crying. What was I talking about? You're all crying. You're like, why do I listen to this podcast? Well, for cooking recipes. You're all, are my marshmallows and hot dogs done yet, honey? Yeah, but anyways, I kind of got off topic. But my point is that we have this story. We did this story about Utah about this old lady walking on her hands. And it seemed like more than a ghost, because it seemed to be hiding itself. It wasn't a ghost trying to make itself visible. But you don't know what it was. Was it some sort of witch? Was it some sort of demonic entity that has not really gotten a grasp of how humans walk? Walking on its hands, kind of a stupid demon if you think about it. They've existed longer than humans. He's like, what, huh? I never watched a human, but I love possessing them. Well, anyways, we did this story on Dead Rabbit Radio, episode 1412, and after that, I got an email from a longtime listener of the show, Cassius Von Fruity Pants. It's really, really interesting, because we did that story, and I just thought it was a cool one-off story. But according to Cassius, he was really intrigued by the story of The Woman in the Woods, is what the episode was called. And Cassius said that their partner, who was raised as a Orthodox Jewish devotee, Orthodox Jewish, I don't think there's a better term for it than a devotee. I'm just thinking of that because of the Magic the Gathering card. Their partner was raised in the Orthodox tradition of the Jewish religion. There we go. I think that probably sounds better. Cassius was talking to him about it and being like, whoa, dude, I was listening to this podcast and this old woman's walking around on their hands. Isn't that creepy? And their partner goes, well, actually, that sounds like something that I've heard before. All right, may not be a one-off thing. And so Cassius sent me over a link to a book called The Hebrew Myths, the book of Gensis. It was written by Robert Graves and Raphael Patai. And it says on page 73, I'll put the link in the show notes, but fascinating, this is crazy. Quote, some say those in paradise, they're the dead people, right? Not like they're just at a resort or something like that. You're like, hey, let's go to Las Vegas. You're all walking on your hands. I'm kind of getting ahead of the joke, but quote, some say those in paradise walk on their hands and stand on their heads, as do all the dead. When a necromancer summons a dead spirit, they always appear upside down, unless they were summoned by a king, in which case they stand right side up, out of respect. Unquote. Yeah, I mean, listen, there's a couple different things in here. I've never heard that before. I'm not Orthodox Jewish guy, though. I don't know much about the Orthodox Jewish religion. Most of them may have never heard of this either. It may be like deep in the lore, or it could be common knowledge. I don't know. But it's kind of creepy, right? It's kind of creepy on a couple different levels. First off, the idea of a necromancer, when they summon the dead, they're walking around on their hands, is terrifying. And you have this idea of this man in Utah who sees something like that and has no knowledge of this. Because in the original narrative, he didn't go, yeah, and I left the woods, but as I was leaving, it reminded me of that day when I went to the synagogue, and I remember the rabbi telling me this. No, he just saw this one thing in Utah, and it turns out there's a belief older than the state of Utah itself about this very same thing. And you have that idea of, what if that woman walking in the woods, because you don't know what it is when you tell that story, what if it is the soul that was summoned by a necromancer? And that would explain it in a way, right? It's not a good explanation. It's even scarier, because you imagine somewhere in the woods, there's another threat. Someone had summoned this woman's soul, and that is why she's walking on her hands. So it's not just like you're seeing an illusion, or you're not seeing a skinwalker who doesn't get it just right. There's actually another threat out there who had summoned her, or trapped her spirit, or what have you, and she's out in these woods. Creepy. It's creepy when we see those connections across stories, across time. This weird image actually has a origin point. Terrifying. So Cassius, thanks for sending that over. I do have to say, though, I'm a little confused, because I understand the necromancer being like, I summon you, soul, come from the grave. And this human soul is being ripped through the ether. And because it's this dark magic, she's walking on her hands. Because it's like this twisted sense of reality. Something that should not be. Okay, I get that. But the first part, I don't think I would call it paradise if I had to walk on my hands all the time. I have a hard enough time walking on my feet. I'm like, I got cramps in my legs. Now I gotta walk on my hands through paradise for eternity? That part's weird too. Doesn't seem fun to be standing on my head. Ever. I don't think I've ever been, now that I think about it, I don't think I've ever been opposite upright. What's the term for that? My head has never been pointed at the ground. I don't think that's ever happened. I'm trying to think of a time I was like tumbling through the air or something like that. No, I'm doing cartwheels. I've never done a cartwheel. I can't think of a time I've ever been hit with enough force that my legs are directly over my head. Ever. Not for a split second here on Earth, so I definitely don't want to do that forever. I'm like, blood's rushing to my head. Everyone in heaven's face is perpetually purple. Like, this is not what I signed up for. I thought I was going to be playing a harp, but I can't because I'm standing on my hands And you learn how to play the harp with your feet. Very, very odd. Like the necromancer part, I get. But the idea that, no, just everyone's on their head. I mean, it's just going to happen no matter what. It's just when a necromancer does it, now you're walking around on earth on your head. I thought it was interesting, too. If a king does it, you're all, ta-da! You're like walking around on your feet. So you imagine all these souls in paradise, and they hear a chant starting, and they're like, oh, it's a king. You're like crossing your fingers. You're falling over, because that's what I do. I just lay down all the time. People are like, aren't you going to move? I'm like, no, I'm good. I'm just laying there, laying on a pile of harps. They're like, no, you got to move. We got to use those harps. I was like, I don't want to move. I don't want to walk around on my hands. Crazy, though. We covered that story in Utah, and it turns out it has this connection as well. I was looking through a little bit more of this book, The Hebrew Myths. I thought it was interesting. Here's some other tidbits, because this is stuff that I've never heard. I grew up Southern Baptist. I've never heard these myths. One of them was, the story of Garden of Eden. Pretty sure you guys are all familiar with it, but Eve eats the apple. Snake's like, yo, eat this. She eats the apple, or the magic mushroom, like we discussed in yesterday's episode. She gives it to Adam. They both get kicked out of the Garden of Eden. Well, I guess there's an old Hebrew myth that as Adam is leaving the Garden of Eden, God goes, hey, do you want to take some stuff with you? I've never heard this before. Hey, I'm sorry for kicking you guys out, but you broke the rules. You want to take something with you? And he did, according to these old stories. Adam took some stuff with him, and it included some seeds and some cuttings of plants, like cuttings of fruit trees, and also cinnamon. Cinnamon did not exist outside the Garden of Eden, and he's all sitting there, and he's like, oh man, I gotta leave? Yeah, but you can take some stuff. And he's like looking around at all of these cool talking animals. And of course, he just takes the plants, right? I would have grabbed a unicorn or two, but he's taking these cuttings of plants and these seeds, and he takes cinnamon. I don't really like cinnamon, so, I mean, your mileage may vary, you may love it, but if you do love it, then every time you have cinnamon, you go, thank you, Adam. That can be your new catchphrase. Fascinating stuff. Cassius, thank you for sending it over. Leo, let's go ahead and toss you the keys to the world-famous Carpenter Copter. We're leaving behind Utah. Why don't you fly us all the way out to Florida? We're headed all the way out to Florida. It's July 2025. Very, very recent story. We're about to meet a young man. We don't have any of the real names, so we're going to call him Darren. He lives with his girlfriend. We'll call her Becky. And Darren has a son. It's unclear if Becky's the mother, but Darren definitely has a son. We'll call him Mike. Now, Darren, when he presents the story online, he goes, listen, nobody's perfect, sure, but my girlfriend is having some pretty serious problems. She's a drug addict and an alcoholic. So it's like the worst of both worlds. And he's living with her. He's trying to make it work, but, I mean, like... And I guess I should say, too, he's saying this. I mean, he might be like, listen, I love drugs and alcohol, but I'm not an alcoholic or a drug addict. So we are definitely getting it from his point of view. But they definitely have a pretty tumultuous home life. He goes, recently, July 2025, me and Becky were having an argument, and she started to gaslight me. She started to tell me something that I knew wasn't true, and she's trying to convince me that it was true, and I called her out on it. I was done with this. I was just going to let her know right now it's done. Quit trying to gaslight me. And he goes, I called her out, and she rolled her eyes at my comment, and then she let out this big yawn. Ooh. Her mouth opens wide, and he's looking right at her. He's watching her yawn. And that's when he's looking into her open mouth while she's yawning. He sees something inside of her. He says that inside of his mouth he saw green or gray, kind of a combination of the two colors, greenish, grayish scales, like that of a lizard or a reptile of any sort. He looks in her mouth and he sees greenish, grayish scales in her throat. That would be alarming enough. But then he also sees a pair of eyes staring at him from inside his girlfriend's mouth. But not just any eyes, right? You're like, oh, are they baby blue? Are they Betty Boop eyes? And the wink at me is sexy. Come here, honey. I mean, any eyeballs inside of your girlfriend's mouth would be cause for alarm, whether or not scales are involved. He sees these scales, he sees a pair of eyes staring at him from inside his girlfriend's mouth. He says they're these silver greenish eyes. It's always interesting, a lot of times in paranormal stories, the colors don't make sense because it's something outside of our understanding. I understand greenish gray, but silver green, it's inhuman. It's outside of our way we even perceive color. He sees these silverish, greenish eyes staring at him. The eyes blink. Not just the trick of the light. He actually sees these eyes blink. And then inside of his girlfriend's throat, he sees a smile appear. Instantly, all these reptilian features vanish. And he's just staring into his girlfriend's mouth. And it's just like tonsils and stuff. He saw what looked like some sort of reptilian creature inside of his girlfriend. Now, they're right, that's the story. If you just had that happen to you, like, how would you process that? You're like, honey, I think we need a marriage counselor slash reptile expert to come hang out with us for the weekend. She's all, what? You take her to the reptile expo and see if anyone, like, recognizes her. There's an iguana in a terrarium, like, giving her a thumbs up. He's like, I knew it. I knew that my girlfriend was a reptilian. Well, here's the thing. He doesn't even think his girlfriend's a reptilian. Just said there's a reptile inside of her, which, I mean, pick your poison. What's worse, your girlfriend is an interdimensional shape-shifting invader, or she has swallowed a giant Gila monster? Which one's worse? But he goes, listen, outside of the whole reptile living inside of my girlfriend's throat, things have been really, really bad at home. You know, obviously she's a drug addict and an alcoholic, and she takes it out on him. She goes, she's constantly yelling at me. She treats me terribly, and to make matters worse, she treats my son terribly as well. She's constantly yelling at Mike. And he goes, you know, me and Mike will just be hanging out, and everything will be chill, but when my girlfriend comes home, when Becky comes home, Mike is like, Daddy, let me play with you. He's like Chucky. He's like, oh, I might want to move. My kid sounds like he's possessed, checking him for reptiles. Hey, Mike, open wide. I want to see if there's a giant iguana inside of you. No, the kid has a normal voice. He goes, when Becky comes home, Mike clings to me. My little boy just clings to me because he knows that bad things are going to happen. He's going to get yelled at and kind of treated like trash. And Mike is a Catholic, so he goes, you know, I'll go to church and I'll take Mike to church, but Becky never comes with us. Becky always stays home. He goes, at one point, he decided that he's had enough, not just for himself, but for Mike. You know, at a certain point, you got to put your kids first. I don't know why he would stay with her as long as he did. Probably, a lot of times it's financial. It may not be feasible to live on your own. Who knows? Maybe sometimes the good times outweigh the bad times, the whole cycle of violence and all that craziness that goes on. But he had enough, and it was time for him to take Mike and to get out of there. And he told her, he goes, I'm leaving. I'm taking Mike and we're leaving. Shortly after he made that announcement, Darren had a stroke. Darren said he suffered a mini stroke, and it has caused physical complications, mental complications, and now he can't leave. I mean, he can physically walk. But what happened was, because of his stroke, he says that he lost his job. He said he worked in the aviation field, aviation industry. I don't know if he's a pilot. I don't know if he just built drones. But he said, I worked in the aviation industry, and ever since I had my stroke, I've had a really hard time speaking, and I lost my job. So he's kind of just stuck there. Despite the fact that he told her, hey, we're leaving, he continues to live there with Mike. So he goes, you know, I told her we were going to leave, and then I had a stroke, and he wonders if she caused that in some way. He goes, I've never told her what I saw. I've never told her that I saw this creature inside of her. And he wonders if this creature is actually causing these problems, more specifically caused the stroke. And so he does feel trapped in that way. Is this some sort of creature that has infused his girlfriend? Would she be completely normal and not a drug addict and not an alcoholic if she didn't have a lizard inside of her? He said that even though he still lives with her, he tries to keep his distance from her and tries to make the best of a terrible living situation. He goes, I don't have a job right now. I lost my job. He goes, I'm actually even afraid to bring this story up to my priest. He feels like he's locked into this horrible situation and doesn't know how to get out. Now, what's interesting, so I was looking into this story. It was posted online by someone going by the name CJ40 West. He, talked about having a stroke. And apparently, having a stroke can cause you to hallucinate. There are a few different types of delusions you can have after having a stroke, which makes sense, right? Because your brain has gone haywire. The different types of delusions you can have after having a stroke. One, you can believe someone is trying to harm you. You probably could have all four of these. Honestly, you're like, wow, I just got the one where I'm paranoid that everyone around me wants to kill me. Now, I don't have any of the other three crazy ones. It's possible you could have all four or a combination. One is a persecutory delusion where you think people are after you. One's called delusional jealousy, which kind of is obvious. You become extremely jealous about somebody or something. One of them we've covered on the show. It's very famous as far as you see it brought up on the internet all the time. After a stroke, you can develop Capgras syndrome, which is the belief that someone around you is an imposter. Someone around you is not who they really are. You're looking at your wife, but you think she's been replaced, and you can't get that delusion out of your head. We did an episode on that a long time ago. I'll put it in the show notes. But it does play a lot into gang stalking, where you think your own family's gang stalking you because you look at your family and you don't recognize them as... You can physically go, that's my wife, but that's not my wife. She's been replaced by somebody. Plays a part in a lot of gang stalking conspiracy theories. And then there's another one called, this is really interesting, I've never heard of this before. It's called reduplicative paramnesia. And that's the belief that there are two copies of one place. So you're in your home and you believe there's two master bedrooms in your home. Out of all of these, that would be the easiest one to have. We're going to rank the stroke delusions. Coming in number one, because they go, sometimes it can be a whole other house. You are in your home, but you believe that there's another home that looks exactly like yours out there. People are like, oh yeah, I live in a cookie cutter neighborhood. All the houses look the same. No, it's more than that. You would be walking around your home and being like, where did I put my wallet? Oh, I must have put it in the other house. That's exactly like this one that I also live in. But you can't get to that house because it actually doesn't exist. Your brain has created a duplicate location. I've never heard of that. I actually want to do more research on that because that would be super trippy. It almost feels like at that point, is that a delusion or are you actually seeing into an alternate reality? I guess I shouldn't encourage some guy just had a stroke. He's like, oh, I'm going to relax, listening to Dead Rabbit Radio. And he's like, I have superpowers now. I can see into alternate realities. I mean, if in a sense, there are duplicates of your house. There's infinite duplicates of your house spread across the multiverse. So kind of fascinating. I want to look at that. So it's possible that there's a biological component. He did have the stroke after he saw the reptile. He saw the stroke after he said, we're going to leave. But one thing I've learned through doing this podcast is that mental illness can actually rewrite the past. We did that terrifying episode. It's one of the episodes that I still, makes me so uneasy that it's real. That someone can have such a mental breakdown that they can create an artificial past. And what that story was a woman claiming that her next door neighbor had been trying to molest her ever since she was a little girl, and he got a job at every single school that she worked at, and now he's living next to her and he's spying on her. None of that happened. There's a mental illness that this guy, she never seen him before. She never encountered him once, until one day she walked out of her house and she saw him watering the lawn, and her brain immediately created 2 decades worth of memories regarding him. That's terrifying, not as the person who's gone insane, but I mean, you could be simply walking through life and then all of a sudden you have an arch enemy, someone who's completely lost it, and you've never seen them before, but they want to break in your house and tie you up and torture you for all of the years that you had tormented them. It's crazy. I've never heard of that before. It shows the frailty of the human mind that can actually rewrite the past. So with something like this, even though the reptilian vision was before the stroke, is it possible that the stroke has caused him to have these false memories? The other question, though, is did he somehow invite a succubus into his house? This was a theory that people were talking about. Is it possible that what he's looking at is not a delusion, and it's not a shape-shifting alien, and it's not a shape-shifting alien from another dimension, but it's actually a succubus? You have a woman who he's still in a relationship with, who seems to have some sort of dark powers, at the very least, keeping them under constant torment, him and his son, but now able to lash out with these psychic attacks, causing his stroke. I mean, that's kind of what's implied here. He says he's going to leave and he has a stroke. Is it possible that he invited some sort of succubus into his household? And a lot of people, if you go anywhere on the X board, there's constantly people trying to figure out how to invite a succubus into your bedroom. This sex demon is, for lack of a better term, how can you bang a demon? A hot demon, right? Not Gammykin. Not this talking donkey walks in, he's all, "You rang?" You're like, any port in a storm. No, a sexy demon, a sexy female demon. How do you get one of these girls to come into your bedroom? And there's always people talking about spells and rituals and things like that. But he doesn't talk about summoning a ritual. He doesn't talk about summoning a succubus. He doesn't talk about inviting this sex demon into his house. There's no mention of it, actually, at all. So why are you even saying that? Is it because it appears that his girlfriend is possessed, or his girlfriend might have this demonic entity inside of her? Well, when I find these stories online, I will go through and try to find out whether or not the story's true. Because at the end of the day, it's just a one-source story. Like most paranormal stories, even the ones you hear from your friends, it's just them telling you what happened. So I try to figure out, if there's any truth to this reptilian demon attached to it. Is that how he got a succubus into his home? Because Darren posts this story, which is a very fascinating story. He's in a relationship with someone who has these dark supernatural powers, and I don't know how often they have sex. And I don't know how often they have sex, which, obviously, if you invited a succubus in your house and you're sleeping on the couch, it kind of didn't work out the way you wanted to. But you're like, Jason, he never talked about summoning a succubus. Why do you keep thinking succubus? Why do you think that this is connected to this girlfriend in that sort of way? In a sexually infused way? Well, I was looking through this dude's posting history, and I came across stuff that I didn't even know. You think about the fact of all of the crazy sex stories we've covered on this podcast. This guy goes to all of these subreddits of just the most disgusting stuff. It's just gross. Like, at a certain point, I'm researching it, and I'm all click, what? Why is that popping up? Gross. Gross. Okay, now here's the thing. I'm going to tell you the titles of these subreddits. But viewer beware if you want to go here. Or, just shut off the podcast now. You're like, nope. If Jason was confused, it's probably pretty rough. Well, maybe I'm hyping it up too much. But anyways, Darren goes to these sites and he interacts on these sites. And so it's weird then, like I would argue this is how this thing got in your house. Sometimes you don't have to do a ritual. Sometimes you don't have to light these candles and draw a sigil and try to get some demonic entity, some sort of sex demon in your house. He may have inadvertently gotten his girlfriend possessed, is kind of what I'm going with on this. I'm not saying that that's why he had the stroke. That would be pretty sad. But also when you deal with this level of stuff, you're like, Jason, quit building it up. Just say it. These are the places that he goes. And you can't tell me there's not some sort of dark energy connected to this stuff. People accuse me of kink shaming. I don't care. That's totally fine. You can say that. I definitely do. I definitely do kink shame. But this is even beyond that. This isn't me going, what? He likes dog collars. What? He has a fetish for clowns. Blech. First off, clowns are pretty sexy, but let's go ahead. Let's go ahead and look at what this freak's up to. Not me. Clowns are sexy. We've talked about that before in the past. These are the places he goes to. These are all sex subreddits. So when I say breeding lab, there's a subreddit called breeding lab. You go, oh, is it for dog breeding? Is it for breeding Labradors? Oh, that's really cool. Or maybe it's some sort of scientific experiment. No. I will say I did not go very deep into these subreddits. I was like, that's enough, right? I clicked on it. I was like, no, that's enough. I didn't do deep research. But breeding lab is a impregnation subreddit. And you go, Jason, that's beautiful. You're the mod. You're the mod of that. You're the mod of all these subreddits. You're like, Jason, that's beautiful. A man and a woman coming together and having a baby? What are you talking about? That's great. They should have more subreddits like this. Every subreddit should have a breeding lab mod in charge. Okay, medical fetish. You're like, Jason, I'm also the mod of that one. And we talk about doctor stuff. We save lives on that. We just also have sex in the background while we're doing CPR. Those ones seem totally fine, right? They're weird. What about this one? Okay, what about this one? Breed me. I stop right there. You're like, oh, it's not too bad. Again, human pregnation, the miracle of life. Breed me daddy. So it's like incest stuff. It's women posting pictures going, breed me daddy, or I don't even want, I was about to give another example. I think you get the point. And here's the thing, I saw that one. There's raceplay _hot. What, there is a special term. Interracial porn has been around since the dawn of porn. Raceplay is a little more racist. So it's not like, oh, look at it, it's a black man and a white woman. Or a white woman and a Chinese dude. Or like a Chinese girl and a white dude, or whatever. That would be fine. I don't got any problem with that, but trying to see how I can put this delicately. Raceplay is more like, you have a white woman who is like a slave master, and she's yelling at a black dude to do laundry or something like that, and then they have sex. Because it's like a slave thing. It's like race play. And I'm sure there's actually probably role play on it as well. There's probably usually like two white dudes talking to each other, but one of them's pretending to be a black girl. One of them's pretending to be an Eskimo, and they got some weird thing going on. But again, it's not just like interracial porn. It's race play. So it's really leaning hard on the racist aspect of porn. And you go, Jason, that's not bad either. That's not bad either. As mod of that community, I'm a racist. I'm a racist through and through, Jason. Don't kink shame me. Racists need love too. Okay, yeah, fine, whatever. Right? I would argue that you should stop moderating all of these forums. But you're right. Here's the thing that I didn't understand what this was. There was an acronym and I go, huh? Oh, I get it. Isn't that a pharmacy? There is a subreddit called CNC and Other Kinks. I go, what's that? Right? I mean, I probably just shouldn't have even looked it up. I should have been like, oh, my research is done. I got enough of these. CNC and Other Kinks. I go, what? What is CNC? Music Factory? It's all dun, 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 dun. Every video has everybody work now, or whatever it is. Everybody dance now. The doctors come out. The medical fetishists dancing while they're working, making those COVID TikToks. No, so a CNC, not the Music Factory, but CNC in a porn context means consenting non-consensual. So it's a rape subreddit. It's all stuff, like the very first thing that popped up was a picture of a woman in a Lowe's uniform This is the second time I've brought up Lowe's hardware firm. I don't remember what the first one was, but it was also super controversial. I made the comment that Lowe's hires sex offenders. That sex offenders online go, hey, if you need a job, go to Lowe's. They don't mind if we're sex offenders. And I don't know if that's true, but that is what sex offenders say, that Lowe's hires anybody. But there's a woman, I think it's Lowe's is what it looks like. There's a young girl, probably in her 20s, wearing a Lowe's uniform. There's a photo of her in the store, and she, quote unquote, here's the thing, I don't know if she actually posted it, or if an ex-boyfriend did, or something like that, or if someone just found these photos online. There's a photo of her wearing her Lowe's uniform she has on her apron. I don't know if she had the name badge. I wasn't looking too closely, just so we're clear. And then, I wasn't trying to find her, but we'll get to that in a second. So, there's a photo of a girl. She's at a Lowe's store. She's wearing the clothing that shows that she works there. And then there's a second photo connected to that of her in a public bathroom, possibly a Lowe's public bathroom, but it could be anywhere. And she doesn't have a top on. She has her boobs hanging out. And you're like, okay, Jason, you're like, I don't know if that's legal. I don't know if you're allowed to post photos from inside a public restroom with your boobs showing. But you go, it's, this woman, she's allowed to show her boobs, public restroom or not, Jason, and that's kink shaming. Well, here's the thing. Connected to the photo, like the headline of the photo says, basically, I want someone to come and drag me to the restroom at Lowe's and force me to have a baby. I want to be impregnated against my will in the Lowe's public bathroom. Which, first off, don't clip that. That cannot be your new ringtone. People are all like, what? Oh, sorry, it's just my mom calling. That's that clip playing over and over again. That might be one of the oddest statements I've ever made on this show. It's not, for me, it's not true, right? But she said it, not me. You're like, wow, Jason really has a weird fetish that came out. No, I'm not into this. And so that's what this whole page is. And it's people posting. Darren's posted on some of these. There would be a photo of a young woman saying, I want to be dragged into the bushes and impregnated against my will. It always seems to come down to this breeding thing. And Darren, among countless others, say, yeah, tell me where you live and I'll do that. And people have been trying to figure out what Lowe's she works at. And a couple people said, hey, honey, I don't know if you really want this to happen, but I know where you work. Like, based on her posting history in the past, some people have actually found out where she's at. For some, listen, I get it. For some people, it's just the fantasy. They're never, ever going to do anything. But, it is that idea that the wolf that wins is the one you feed. Even if you go, I'm never, ever, ever going to be involved in the consenting, non-consensual community in real life, but you watch a lot of that porn, the wolf you feed is the one that wins. Eventually, you may find yourself making decisions that you shouldn't have, and you shouldn't have. But you basically fed that wolf so much that that's all you can think about. And you go, well, Jason, the key word is consenting. These are two consenting adults. Well, again, we don't know if she's posting these photos. Right? These could be two completely unrelated photos that someone else is posting, and there's enough information that someone could actually drag her to the bathroom someday. I think we can all, listen, whatever your fetish is, if you're into something normal, like sexy clowns, or something freakish, like consenting, non-consensual, I would argue, listen, if you're in a relationship, and she's like, this is my fetish, I want it to be rough, I want to be raped. That's you guys actually having a relationship. And if you do meet somebody and you've dated once or twice and she opens up about it with you, fine. Right? That is consenting. It's this where you're just posting all of these photos and inviting people to do this, and people who are engaging with this community are releasing all of this sexual energy in not a one-on-one sort of way. It's like 1,000 men looking at one photo and 1,000 men fantasizing about this one violent act against this woman who may or may not really be consenting. See, in real life, you would know. If you're talking to someone, that's kind of what I'm getting at. If you meet someone, it doesn't have to be like you're married for 10 years. If you meet someone on some fetish website and you talk to them and you're having a conversation and you're going to do this crazy stuff, this stuff that most people would never even think was pleasurable. The fact of the matter is you are both there. And from the very get-go, you guys both know the score. Versus 1,000 dudes looking at this photo of a girl who may or may not know she's even on the internet and fantasizing about raping her. Like, there is a different sort of sexual energy that's going on between those two scenarios. And when you are just shooting shots out into the darkness, I think you're opening yourself up to demonic oppression. And that may be what Darren is facing. I think he's opened himself up to that. Now, the crazy thing is that may not be what it is. It could be a mental illness that unfortunately has come as the result of a stroke. It could even be something completely unrelated to his sexual habits. She could have been possessed from the get-go. She could have invited this thing into her through her own trials and tribulations. We don't know. But whatever the theory is behind it, we'll wrap it up like this. The fact of the matter is Darren is in a situation that he feels he cannot get out of, and it's possible that he physically can't leave. If he doesn't work and he's kind of stuck there living with his girlfriend, demon or not, interdimensional reptilian inside of her or not, he's stuck there. And he has to face this down. And the most tragic character in this whole story is his son, Mike. At the end of the day, Darren has the option of talking to the priest or reaching out to a friend or reaching out to an ex-colleague and trying to figure a way out of that situation. But Mike has no one. Mike only has his father to help protect him. But it sounds like his father has enough problems as is. And until he can start to solve some of these issues, he unfortunately is putting Mike in a very dangerous situation, whether or not there's a demon or an alien or whatever involved. A child in the home of a drug addict and an alcoholic, and a father who can't do anything to stop her, to even stop her from mistreating his own child. The true victim is Mike, this young boy trapped in a home. He doesn't care if it's an alien or a demon. Mike just wants to grow up in a safe household, and that doesn't sound like that's going to happen anytime soon. DeadRabbitRadio@gmail.com is going to be our email address. You can also hit us up at Facebook.com/DeadRabbitRadio. TikTok is @DeadRabbitRadio. Dead Rabbit Radio is the daily paranormal, conspiracy, and true crime podcast. You don't have to listen to it every day, but I'm glad you listened to it today. Have a great one, guys.